Hello and welcome to My Piano Method with me, Michelle Orp. This is my beginner to grade course, lesson 5. It's time to learn all about half steps and whole steps on the piano, and this will lead us into understanding about sharps and flats. And once you know those two things, we can learn that super cool major scale formula. So let's take a look. So we've learned about all of the white notes on the piano, A, B, C, D, E, F and G, but we haven't spoken about the black notes. Now the black notes are sharps and flats. Remember, we've got the group of two followed by the group of 3. To understand sharps and flats, we need to understand half steps and whole steps. Now if we take our C major scale, and there are 7 notes, C, D, E, F, G, A and B, and then we start again at the C. There's 8 notes in total in this scale, but if we include all of the black notes as well, there's actually 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13 if you include the top C. So what we can actually do is we can count up by half steps. Now a half step is basically the closest note. So from C, a half step will be this black, because it's the closest if we're going up, or it would be the B, which is a half step down, because it's the closest note down. And from here, a half step would be to the D, half step to this black note, half step to the E, half step to the F, and so on. We can work our way all the way up by half steps, and we can work our way all the way down by half steps as well. Now a whole step is just 2 half steps. So from C, a whole step would be to D, because you're counting 1 half step, 2 half steps. So from D, a whole step would be to the E, 1, 2. From the E, a whole step would be 1, 2, would be to this black note here. And you can do this from any note. So if we're on the C, if I wanted you to go down by a half step, you'd go down to B. If I wanted you to go down by a whole step, 1, 2, you would go down to the B flat. So that's what half steps and whole steps are. Now, to sharpen any of the notes, you have to go up by a half step. And to flatten any of the notes, you go down by a half step. So we should be able to find a sharp and a flat from any note. Let's try it from the G. This is a G as we know it. If you want to sharpen the G, you have to go up by a half step. So it would be this black note next to it. If we go back to the G, if I asked you to flatten this G, you would have to go down a half step. So you would go down to this black note. And this is a G flat. But of course that does mean that these black notes can be both sharps and flats, because this is a G flat, but it's also an F sharp. So if we're on this F, you sharpen it by going up a half note. So that is F sharp, but it's also G flat, because if we're on the G and you flatten the G, you have to go down a half step. So it would also be G flat. Now the software I use will just pick one to show you. So in this case it's picked the F sharp to put underneath, but this is an F sharp as well as a G flat. So what happens when you come to a note that doesn't have a flat either side of it? Well, the same rules apply. So if you're on an F and I ask you to sharpen it, you have to go up a half step. So you would go up to F sharp, and this black note is F sharp. But if we want to flatten this F, we have to go down a half step. So we go down a half step to this E. So this E is also an F flat. Same for this C. So if we press on the C, middle C, if I ask you to play me a C sharp, of course you go up a half step. Back to the C. If I ask you to play me a C flat, down a half step to B flat, to C flat, which would be a B. From the D, it's a bit more easy because they're both black notes. So D sharp, it's up a half step. D flat is down a half step. So that's D flat. And of course that is also C sharp. So hopefully that makes sense. And we will be doing some exercises this week based on this and you trying to find different sharps and flats. But let's take a look at what they look like written down. So this is what a sharp looks like, this symbol here. And this is what a flat looks like. And these are called accidentals. So if you hear somebody say, wow, there's a lot of accidentals in this piece of music, they're actually talking about the sharps and flats. Now there is a third accidental you need to be aware of, and that's a natural. And I'll be explaining what that is and what it does in a bit. So first off, let's look at the sharp and the flat. So let's put the sharp onto a piece of sheet music. Here we go. I've picked a bar with 4 beats. We've got 4 notes here, F, G, F and F. You can see this 4th note has been sharpened. So let's take a closer look. Now the sharp or the flat will always be to the left of the note that it's changing. So you will always see it to the left of the note. So this bar will be an F natural, which is just a normal F on the white note, followed by a G on the white note, followed by another F on the white note, but then followed by an F sharp, which will be the black note here. But there is a rule that you need to know when it comes to sharps and flats. And to demonstrate that, let's move this sharp to the first note of this bar. So now the very first F is sharpened, and the rule is once an accidental has shown up in a bar of music, so once a sharp or flat has shown up in a bar of music, then that accidental will apply to that note for the rest of that bar. So what I mean by that is because this first note is an F sharp, now all Fs in this bar have to be sharpened. And we do this so that it doesn't get too busy, because if we had to put this sharp on all the Fs in this bar, it could look a bit messy and get confusing. So we just expect people to know this rule. Because this first F has been sharpened, all the Fs in this bar are now sharpened. It only applies to the F here, so it only applies to the note that has been changed. So we have an F sharp, followed by a G, and this is a natural G on the white note, followed by an F sharp, followed by another F sharp. Now if we move that sharp again to the third note, it's a bit different. So now the first note is an F natural. It's on the white note because nothing's happened to this F yet. There's no sharps or no flats on it. So this is an F natural, normal F. We then move to a G. We then move down to an F sharp. And of course, now this accidental has shown up, all the other Fs have to be sharpened. So this is an F sharp too. Now do remember, all of these accidentals are cancelled at the end of the bar. So in this second bar, when we come to an F, this will be an F natural on the white note. So we start again afresh on a new bar. So let's go back to this 4th note of F. Now we know this is an F sharp because the F before it was sharpened, so it's now applied to all the Fs in this bar. So this is an F sharp. But let's just say for a moment that the composer has decided that he doesn't want this to be an F sharp. So what does he do? Because of this rule, we have to sharpen this F here. So what they do in this scenario is they use the natural sign, and that's this natural we looked at the start of the lesson. So if we pop that in onto that 4th note of F, that note has now been naturalised back to its normal state, which is F on the white note. And that's how composers get over that rule. So this bar now is a normal F on the white note, followed by a G, followed by an F sharp, and then followed by an F natural, because the composer has naturalised the note. So it would sound like this. And let's just have a quick look at what a flat looks like. So let's flatten the G and see what it would sound like. So we'd start with an F on the white note. We would then move to a G flat. We then move to an F. And of course the same rules apply, so let's just say for a moment that this note was a G, then of course you would play it as a G flat, because a G before it has been flattened. So this bar of music would sound like this. So it's going to take you a while to get the hang of sharps and flats and to be able to spot them in sheet music. Again, it's just time and practice until you get used to it. One of the biggest problems you'll find when you're playing a piece of music is all of a sudden a note you're hitting doesn't sound right. And if it doesn't sound right to your ear, you're probably playing the wrong note. And usually it's because it's supposed to be a sharp or a flat. And it's that little rule that will get you every time. If a note has been changed in a bar to be sharp or flat, that applies to the whole bar. So if you see that note again, it still applies unless you see an accidental. So I've added 5 days worth of exercises to this lesson, and it's going to get progressively harder through the 5 days. I wouldn't suggest trying to play these at speed. I would just take the PDF or pause the video and take your time and try and work out what all the notes are.